Okay, welcome everyone. Welcome to the Maximum Mom podcast. And today I am so excited. Y'all just don't even know how excited I am to have Hillary Walsh join me today. Welcome, Hillary.
You think you're excited? I am more excited. I'm going to one up you on the excitement level.
No way, impossible. Hillary is the owner of New Frontier Immigration Law. A former foster care and juvie kid turned lawyer, Hillary Walsh helps immigrant families live free in the United States. Outside of New Frontier, she's an adjunct law professor, mother of 4, who I just love, military wife, I can relate to that, and an avid Phoenix Suns fan. In the past 10 plus years of practicing immigration law, she's represented clients before the U.S. Supreme Court, the Supreme Court of Nevada, the Ninth Circuit, and the Fifth Circuit Court of Appeals, and the Board of Immigration and the immigration courts nationwide. Now, did you love that Fifth Circuit Court of Appeals? That's my homeland.
I got my teeth kicked in there. So, immigrants don't have a whole lot of rights in Texas, unfortunately.
No, so not at all. Okay, well, Hillary, first, I always like to get started with, tell us about your family. Just tell us who makes you a mom and what is going on in your home.
Yes, my kids I have 9-year-old twins, Ryan and Evie. Ryan is a girl. She's named after my cousin Ryan, who was killed in action a few years ago. He introduced my husband and I and always joked that we had to name our firstborn after him. And so sadly, he didn't get to meet his namesake, but we have a little girl named Ryan after my cousin Ryan. And that's been a really fun thing for her to know about and to cherish and relish. Evie is her twin sister. Evie is a blast and very reckless and fearless, and is probably going to be the kid who at 10 years old is jumping out of airplanes. She's that kind of kid. Lucy is my 7-year-old. Surprise, I was unable to have kids on my own or with Sean's help. Neither of us could do it. We had to do in vitro, and that's how we had twins. Then the computer was reset. We got a Lucy. So I had 3 kids under 2 years old while living alone in Korea. So it was a trip. And then Lincoln is there's always a kid in every family who just breaks the parents, totally wears them down. And Lincoln is 100% that kid. He is a bull in a china closet, or whatever phrase you want to use, but he is a mama's boy. And I hope that I hope it never changes. So that's my family. Those are my people.
Love that. Gosh, I love your descriptions. That's just, it's so true. You're so right. How we all have one of those.
Every family has one.
Everyone, we do. We have one, and he was just here this weekend. It's the same thing. Just even having him here this weekend as he's diving off things, I'm like, you do have to worry about the depth of the water under there. And then he's back flipping off of things, putting mud in the hot tub. I'm like, oh my God. And he's a grown-up.
He's a grown-up. I love it. Yes. Everyone, yesterday I was laying on the couch, and I had convinced Ryan, my 9-year-old, to give me a foot rub the night before. I just kind of plopped down, and I just put my feet kind of on her lap while she was watching a movie, and she started rubbing my feet. And I was like, this is awesome. The next day, Lincoln, 4-year-old, comes around, and he puts his feet right here as I'm laying on the couch, one foot on my face and one foot's shaking it in front of me. And my husband's like, I don't know how you're ever going to be happy with a spouse. No man or woman is ever going to please you when your mother allows you to put your dirty feet on her face and she rubs them. So he breaks me. He is a force to be reckoned with, but he's also he gets away with murder.
I love that. And that he's got 3 older sisters too.
Yes.
That has to be a fascinating dynamic.
Yes. Usually, so far we've had every year we have 4 princesses at Halloween, because he doesn't want to be to be fair, boy costumes at Halloween, they're either really scary or they're just boring, but princess costumes are always fun. So we usually have 4 princesses. We'll see what we come up with this year. And people will be like, oh my gosh, you have 4 daughters. I can't imagine. And my husband's like, me either. I don't know. What can I tell you?
Oh my gosh. Well, we had the reverse. So we had one girl and then three boys. And so, I mean, I didn't realize at first, so I would buy all these things for my daughter, like pink things or princess this or princess that. So I did not think this through well. So there we are living in New Orleans. We'd go snow skiing. She had all these pink, adorable things. So then when it came time for my son to go, I'm thinking, well, I'm not buying more ski clothes. Like, obviously, you're wearing the cute, pink, adorable things. So he just completely got used to, he'd be like, whatever, mom's putting me in this pink ski suit.
Roll with it.
It's just like, you're fine. But then, I decided, okay, I guess I better not be so gendered in my shopping.
Yeah, I know what you mean. And it's amazing how we were even doing back to school haircuts, and there was no question in my mind, like as I started typing into Pinterest, little boy haircut. And it's like, who made this up? And why am I just consuming it and just getting in line? I mean, don't get me wrong. He got a cute little boy haircut. He's adorable, but it's one of those things where we are very gendered in what we do.
We sure are. We really are. Well, one of the things that I really wanted to talk to you about is, when I think of all the things I see you doing and you evolving in your life, I mean, I would love to hear about how do you marry the things you're doing with 4 kids? I mean, it is different to have 4 kids than 1 or 2. Let's be serious. I mean, how do you handle the children, the firm, your home? I mean, your husband, I'm assuming, as a fighter pilot, is probably gone a fair amount of the time, or at least has been. I mean, how do you deal with all this? How do you juggle all this and make it work?
Oh, I'm thinking through that and I'm not really sure. The good thing is, you get usually, for us, we got 2 kids at a time initially, but you get 1 kid at a time, and you kind of figure it out. But we hire a lot of help. And I think that is critical to not fighting with your husband all the time or your partner about responsibilities. We have a marriage coach, marriage counselor, who help keep us accountable on not keeping score, because I think that is really toxic to relationships. And it's something that we have done. We've been married for 17 years this year, 18 years, and engaged for a year before that. We've been together since I was 19. So however long ago that was. And for all of those years, we have very much been people who kept score. It was like, I got up with the kids yesterday, it's your turn. But your turn and my turn implies that we're not on the same team and that we're not one shared resource. So just because I got up with the kids yesterday, well, my husband, he does work really crazy hours. And so he might get home at 4:00 in the morning. It would be completely out of integrity. And I used to still do it, even though it was out of integrity, because I could be right by saying, well, I did it yesterday, you do it today. But if we're a shared resource, like one battery pack, and if I'm just depleting my battery pack in order to be right, that leads us to a big problem. And I think that has been, not keeping score and not having your turn, my turn, has really been how we've prevented more fallout, and how we've been able to do all of the things because we're on the same team.
That is powerful. I love the thought of a shared resource, a shared battery pack. I mean,
yeah, and that's not my original thought by any means. Abby Medcalf is our marriage counselor, coach, whatever you want to call her. And she was recommended to me by Steph Tuss, who works with David Nagel and is just fantastic herself. She's who recommended Abby to me. And Abby has a great podcast and her book is fantastic. And so much of, a relationship working as an inside job, which I hate. I wish that it was the other person's fault, but it's not.
Okay.
And working with her has been really transformational for us. And I think that you can hire all the help in the world, but you can still find things to quibble over if you're not on the same team, if you're keeping score. Yeah. And working with her has really helped us to get unified. And it's like, I love basketball. And, the Suns for the past couple of years have gone really far. And we thought that they thought we were going to get rings, but then we didn't for the past couple of years. But at the end of the day, if only one player was taking all the shots, you just don't win. So
Right.
I want to win. That means we have to win.
Right.
And my kids have to win as well. So that has been so helpful to us. I think that is, we can't do it all, but we can do a lot of things together really well.
Yeah. Well, you mentioned working with David Nagel. I mean, I have to inquire as to that. I mean, because I find his work, his thoughts, his just all the things to be really powerful. Tell us about your work with David Nagel. How did that come about? What have you gotten out of it? I mean, how has it helped your business, your family? And
Yeah.
you mentioned a little
I
about your
mean,
family.
it's
But
like the golden thread that you pull back. And I moved back to the US. My family moved back to the US in late 2018. I guess it was August 2018. So we're almost on is that 4 years ago?
Yeah.
Something like that. Crazy.
yeah,
And we had been overseas we've been in Korea for just over 3 years. We had been in England for a year after that. And now it was time for us to come back home. And I picked Phoenix. I was insistent that I wanted to come back to Phoenix, and I just needed to be in America for a while. Like, I love being overseas. I love traveling, but I needed to be back in my turf for a little bit. And I really, really, really wanted a job at this nonprofit that I had been doing a ton of pro bono work for. But I didn't have the Spanish skills, and they wouldn't bend the rules for me. Very demoralized, very disappointed. I decided, forget it. I'm just going to open my own firm. And by happenstance, I was working on a pro bono case that somehow, like the way that it happened, I can't even describe it, connected me to Zaira Solano.
mm-hmm.
Zaira introduced me to how to manage a small law firm. And there, Arjan talked from the stage a lot about his work with David Nagel. And I thought, man, if this Arjan character is learning from this guy, I want to learn from the student and the teacher.
Yep.
And so right away I started, I think that there was a podcast or there was a book or there was, some type of lead magnet that I consumed. And I went all in. I did a date with your dark side. I did art of success. And I just finished in this summer, I just finished a year-long daily kind of like a mindset morning call that he hosts every single day. And that was transformational for me as well. So it's been it's been 3 years of a lot of work with him.
That's amazing.
And with Steph, I love working with Steph.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Well, and how has that impacted your business? I mean, you as a law firm owner, what can you tell us? What have you seen, from that work?
I think it's hard to pull apart who has been more influential for me as a business owner, whether it's been more Arjan or more David. I mean, I think they're saying the same things, they're just saying them differently. Mm-hmm. But my work with both, I had a wonderful experience with how to manage. I'm not a how to manage member anymore because I felt like I consumed everything and needed to move on to a different coaching program. But man, I would not be where I am. I remember Arjan was the first person I texted when our firm broke $1 million. And he got on the phone with me and he was like, I still remember walking around, my kitchen or whatever his story was with Allie, and we had finally broken $1 million. And he goes back there and just really cares. And he helped shape who I am and my belief that I have in myself for my business. In those early stages, like a parent urging a toddler that you can walk, Yeah. And working with David over the past few years, I feel like is the Miracle Grow on the tomatoes, Right. It's like a small dose of this makes huge impacts. And I mean, we have almost 100-person employee law firm right now. And I started it in January 2019. So I really think that anybody can do what I'm doing. I don't have anything super special other than a lot of belief and a lot of I'm not going back. Like this is my life and there's no plan B at this point. So those have been amazing gifts that those two guys gave me.
It really is amazing to watch the growth and development. I mean, when you talk about running a firm with 100 employee type, people in whatever capacity, I mean, what does your firm structure look like? Like, who helps you run that? I'm sure
So
you are
many
not.
people.
Yeah, right. The whole thing,
Yes,
right.
so many people. I had an attorney meeting this morning. There are, I think, 6 or 7 attorneys in the firm. And we just hired a lead attorney who really helps manage the attorneys and advise them and make sure that, that really replaced me as the lawyer in the firm.
Right.
And that has been my most recent, like, hell yeah, because, and it's funny, when I first started with HTM, they were like, yeah, sometimes they stay the lawyer and they find all these different other people to help run the business. But we find that most people will eventually fall in love with running the business. And I was like, I'm not most people, because I really prided myself, and I still do to some extent, on being a really, really good lawyer.
Yep.
And arguing at these, doing these prestigious things. And I still aspire to testify before Congress about immigration law and argue at the US Supreme Court and those types of things, but they no longer are like the feather in my cap that are going to make me, that was it. I just did it. It would be a feather in my cap of many feathers. So I have all those attorneys running things. We run our firm in a pod structure. So little organizations within the organization, silos, we can call them lots of different things, but those are like 6-person teams, and they handle all the matters that are very specific to their specialty. And then I have a wonderful director of operations who started as a paralegal in the firm and quickly became the office manager, and now is the DO of the firm. I mean, we have a sales director. We use lots of outside coaching. So right. It's amazing that we're all rowing in the same direction. And I think that's what keeps us cracking.
Oh, it's huge. Absolutely huge. Well, what would you say to somebody? I mean, I think of these, smaller firms, like they're earlier in their careers, and people are like, oh, I don't know that I have money for coaching. I mean, what would you say about that, and whether or not it's money well spent, even early on?
I just look at people like the Williams sisters, and their coaching began when they were children. And Devin Booker, the kind of one of the stars of the Phoenix Suns, he was born into being he had a basketball in his hands from the time he was teeny tiny. So I don't think that there's ever a point that it's too early to get coaching. I'm not an athlete, but I do have a lot of endurance. And I think that's one of the things that you got to have if you're going to build an enduring company. I want this company to outlive me. So I think that it really just comes down to a decision about what kind of business you want to have. And there are businesses where, you may really, and there was a time for me where I really enjoyed the stress that scared the shit out of me to get me out of bed every day, because I didn't know if I was going to make payroll. I didn't know if I was going to be able to pay rent. And so you have that kind of terror that gets you out of bed every day. And then you start, you make enough money in your firm where you don't have that scaring you out of bed every day. Then you just have to, your mission and your vision and your desire has to lift you out of bed. And being scared out of bed like an alarm clock is actually way easier to do, because you get out with like the adrenaline pumping. You're already sweating. You don't need coffee because you were so stressed out already.
Yep.
But then things shift, and then you have to decide, wow, what am I going to do today? And how am I going to make an impact? And what is the conversation I want to have with this person? And how do I want them to walk away feeling from it? Where before it was like, I don't have time for your feelings. I need you to get this done. And coaching is such an important sounding board. I've worked with Kristen David, and I got off a call with my marketing director this morning, and I haven't talked to her for 2 weeks because I was on vacation for a few weeks in Ireland and just got back on Thursday. And I was like, Sarah, how are you? She was like, I am so good. Kristen David's mind is amazing. And she's working with Louis Scott, who's my business advisor right now. And she's like, between the two of them, I got to see the magic of their minds and I am on fire. I am unstoppable. And I was like, well, you have a great day then. You do not need anything from me. There's nothing I can give you. So coaching for me is invaluable.
I love that.
It's something you put on a credit card if you don't have the cash for it.
Yeah. Well, and I love that you're sharing it with people on your team. I mean, actually understanding the impact, not only for you, but for the leaders in your office, and actually developing further leaders in your office.
For sure. Is that something that you do as well?
I do. Yeah. I think it's very powerful. And interestingly, I just had dinner with Kristen the other night. And so I literally was like, to my own marketing director, I'm like, oh, we got to hook you up with this person. And so I think it makes a real difference. And I think sometimes business owners can look at it as an expense, as like a burden or a cost. And I very much try to look at it as a true investment, not only in the business, but in that human and, whatever they're going to do, even if it means maybe I'm developing them out of my, we call ours a rocket ship, out of my rocket ship. I'm okay with that, because they're going to go on, do whatever great things in whatever other place they're going to go do it. And it's all going to be good. I mean, they're still going to be a supporter of our firm. I can still support them in their development and their career. And so I sometimes think people think about coaching and developing from kind of a fear place of, what might it do? And, how will people grow and maybe leave? And I really think that's kind of a good thing to switch and not think of it like that, and not think of everything like a pie,
or a prison, working here and what I invest in you. You want them to give something to your company. If you want to receive, you have to give, and that's both those arteries have to be unclogged. And I would hate for my company not to grow enough to keep up with rock stars in my company. Totally. So it's like, I'm going to invest in them and make them extraordinary. We talk about our team as a basketball team, and we're going to the finals. And that really helps us look at each other, not as competition, not as slackers, but also really evaluate, hey, like this person is not pulling their weight and we need to talk about this. And when you look at, I'm going to invest in training this person so they're an outstanding point guard, because we really need an outstanding point guard if we're going to beat insert who our biggest competition is right now, in the basketball sense, then that's who I need to invest in. That makes the whole team better. And if they get traded because I couldn't keep them here, then that's my problem.
Right. It is. I love that. I love thinking about it like a basketball team. I think that's awesome. How do you handle those things like accountability when you might see somebody who's struggling? Maybe they're not pulling their weight at the moment. How do you and your team deal with accountability? What does that look like?
Well, I just, while I was on vacation, had a chat with my new lead attorney, because she said one of the other attorneys needs to go. This person is providing bad legal advice. Whoa. And, I had 2 conversations with him leading up to that. Before I left, I had a counseling session with him. I read a book called, and this was another Steph Tuss recommendation. I read a book called No Rules, Rules. Every time I say that, I realize I have like a Kansas drawl or something where the word doesn't come out right, but it's the word rules, like, RULES. No Rules, Rules. It's about the Netflix work culture.
Oh.
And it talks about, they call it the keeper test. The keeper test is, if this person were to walk in my office today and tell me that they're leaving, would I fight to keep them? Mm-hmm. Yes or no? And you have to evaluate your team constantly like that. And we're really open and honest because we're a basketball team aspiring not to just have fans in the stands, but instead to win the championship. When you do not pass the keeper test, we will always let you know immediately, same day. the minute you don't pass the keeper test, and we will tell you what the three things are that you need to do in order to pass the keeper test and by when. And then it is up to that person whether they have the chutzpah to decide that they are going to do those three things. That they're never like, I mean, if it's just a misalignment, then, that's a whole other problem. But this particular attorney had really bad communication skills, was not investing in learning the critical component of his job, which was to give legal advice. He advised our strategists. So, they're giving all this legal advice, and really was also not communicating with people on Slack, which is our main place that we communicate with. So not only was when communication happening, it was not working, but then it was hit or miss anyway. So the day I decided, if he were to call me and tell me I'm going to give you my 2 weeks, I wouldn't fight to keep him. I called and had that uncomfortable conversation, and let him know that you didn't pass the keeper test today. Here's how you can improve, and here's the deadline by which you need to do it. And what do you think about that? And it was an apathetic response. And I knew right then that, I've given this deadline and I'm going to honor it, but it is what it is. And we have an open environment enough to where we can have those conversations, and people fight to keep their job or they don't. And that's really what it comes down to in terms of accountability.
I love that. I've not read that book.
Oh, it is a delight.
Of course, I'm so getting it when we get off this podcast, because it just sounds like such a simple way to think about it as using a keeper test. And and I love the immediacy of the communication. So there's none of that, because I think a lot of things happen where it's this drawn out process of you're seeing problems, and then you do some coaching and you're waiting for improvement, and you got to then throw in the mix whatever their subjective things are. And it literally can go into this months-long thing. And I'm often like, this was not a good use of time on either side of this equation, And it just feels like I just really like the immediacy of having that tough conversation, really thinking about those three things and putting a deadline in, and it being pretty quick. And I think that's helpful to both sides.
Totally. The benefit is both ways, because the promise from our other team members is, if you ever say that if New Frontier were to call me and let me go, I wouldn't fight to stay, please let me know same day, because I want to know how we can make this a place that you would fight to work at. This is your one true life, and you spend 40 hours a week here.
Exactly.
Like, you need to love working here. You don't have to love it every day. Like, there are days when I'm like, man, I could really not do this today.
Right.
But if this is something where, like, this mission or vision, the values that we have, the clients we serve, the people you work with, if they're not folks who you want to fight to stay to work with and work for, let me know how we can change that. And it's been great. I had one paralegal, and she is a rock star, let me know that she'd gotten a job offer. She was going to accept it unless I wanted to fight to keep her. And I was like, yes, I want to fight to keep you. And she wasn't doing it in a manipulative sense. I think that I can almost hear people thinking like, oh, well, I would just call and say that to get a raise. That's not how we roll. And anyone who would be manipulative like that, it would be found out much sooner than using a keeper test to their advantage. But it was so great, because not only did I get to see where I was failing her and giving her job opportunities for real growth that she wanted, but we didn't have to wait for some performance review, which we're not even really that good at, because we're growing so fast. It's like, who had a raise last? I don't know. Like, we're just doing this. But there are so many great things about the No Rules book that you will love. And the format that it's written in is really engaging. And so it's a very easy read. Instead of it being super dense, like I'm reading Beyond Entrepreneurship 2.0. And it's like reading a textbook. Every line is gold, but it is like reading a textbook. No Rules is written like a conversation. And not like the cheesy conversations where they're like trying to tell you a story through a story. It's really outstanding. So you'll enjoy it.
I love that. Well, now I'm going to switch gears a little. I'm curious. I mean, immigration has to be a pretty emotionally taxing practice area. I mean, I do family law. I consider family law pretty emotionally taxing.
Yeah.
And how do you deal with immigration and the effects of the process and of what's going on with the families you're working with, as well as how does your team deal with the stress of that type of practice area?
We really indoctrinate. One of the first things that we do in the firm with onboarding is everyone has to read the 4 agreements. And one of the 4 agreements is to always do your best. And I think that when you know you've done your best, really liberates you from a lot of self-abuse. I remember my first asylum case that I had done from the ground up. I had been an appellate attorney for the longest time because we were overseas. But the first case that I did and lost, and, you know, this client had become my family. And it was at a time in my life where we had just moved back to Arizona. I didn't know anybody in the state. I still don't even have an Arizona phone number because when we moved back, I wasn't sure that we were going to live here for very long. I was just here for now, and the military was going to move me. I had no idea I was going to fall in love with this place and want to stay forever. And I became friends with this guy, and I wanted to win his case. And on top of that, he had a kid, really almost to the day, the same age as Lucy. So like, kid in Mexico, this guy had been horrendously tortured by a cartel in Mexico. Should have won his asylum case, but we got a bad decision from a judge. And I remember going to my twins' birthday party a few days after we got the negative decision and just sitting there and feeling so much guilt. And it was like, if I had just X, if I had just Y. And this was before I knew about the 4 agreements. And I don't even know if knowing about the 4 agreements would have totally taken the guilt away, because I think it's one thing to be like, oh, I did my best, I'm moving on. It's a whole other thing to live it. But I think that when we do fall into the hole of this is hard, this family member of this client is really relying on me, I hold the outcome of their life in my 2 little sweaty hands. And I'm not even holding my own life together that well. You start having that conversation. And I think that God doesn't call the qualified, he qualifies the called. And I've heard that quote a couple times, and man, it really resonates with me. You're here now in this moment handling this problem because you're ready for it. And so much of it just ties into our belief about ourselves. So it's a very high emotion practice area. But I also think that I wouldn't have it any other way. It wouldn't be nearly as much fun if it weren't a little scary.
Totally. I agree. I mean, I love the emotional part of the practice. And I find, people call soft skills. And I have to tell you, I mean, I find the emotional intelligence and the EQ around all of the people part to be, I mean, those are the hard things. I mean, even though I feel like it's part of my wheelhouse, I mean, I feel like I have to work at it all the time and really, turn that mirror on myself and ask, what did I do to contribute to this problem? Or what is my participation in this? And then really answering those questions honestly and being able to make changes. And I don't know, I find those soft skills to be pretty constantly, evolving, learning. Whereas with the practice of law, I'm like, oh, I know how to do that. You get to where I feel like you got this, but the people part, I say all the time, people are just stinky onions, and there's never one size fits all. And the amount of learning that goes into mastering that and mastering your own brain and emotions and reactions, it's some serious work.
It is. And, stinky onions just need a couple minutes of a saute, and they're sweet and delicious.
Exactly.
And smells so good. You don't have to know how to cook anything, so it's like.
I say stinky onions make the best crawfish etouffee. And they do. They really, really do.
Yeah. Have you used the Enneagram at all in your
Oh, yeah.
practice? Yeah, we love the Enneagram. I haven't
Yeah.
fully like committed and gone all in and done full trainings and that sort of thing.
No.
But it has been really fun to work with my main leadership team and figure out what their Enneagram is, because I am, a very emotional person. I have a lot of feelings that come and go, but I want everything done yesterday.
Me
And
too.
the speed with which one of my marketing assistants calls me Hillary Walsh, chop, chop, get it done.
Yeah.
And I never really understood it until one of my best friends joined the firm. She'd known me since I was 17. And she's like, no, you have unreasonable expectations.
Yeah.
Yeah, you have unreasonable expectations. I was like, don't tell anybody that. They don't know any different. We're just going to keep on keeping on. I think the people aspect is hard, but it is also really rewarding. So I don't mind it. I just came back from 3 weeks off, so I haven't really seen anybody in the firm too. So maybe I'm the wrong person to ask right now. But my mom is a very candid Kansas woman, and her favorite phrase about people is that people suck. And we all do. We all have our things for sure.
I love that though, you describe yourself and literally that is me exactly. Like,
what is your Enneagram number?
I'm a 2-9.
You're a 2. Okay. I'm an 8. I don't remember what my wing is, but I'm an 8, which is like, some people describe it as a bulldozer. So it's super fun to be around me when I'm PMSing. You can imagine.
Oh my gosh. Well, I get told all the time, like how utterly unreasonable my expectations are on timing. I mean, I have a person who works with me now and she'll be like, Elise is the 3-minute person. Then so-and-so is like the 3-week person. And then so-and-so is a 3-month person. She's like, I always feel like I'm trying to get you all into the middle, kind of like in a 6-week time frame. And I'm always like, oh my gosh, this should be done by this afternoon. I do not even understand what the problem is.
Exactly. I know. I think that it's fear. People are really afraid they're not going to do it right. When we're doing it, no one's looking over our shoulder to make sure it's done right or not.
Yeah, exactly. Well, and I think some of us accept our limitations better. Like in that, when I put something, I'm like, it doesn't have to be perfect. This could be a C+ job and it's going to be fine. We're not necessarily striving for A+ right now,
Yes.
And I do think it's different. I'm not a big sleeper. I never have been. I'm one of those people that sleeps like 4 or 5 hours a day. And I've done all the sleep studies because, it's not a lot of sleep. And they're like, you're just one of those people that does not need as much sleep as others. You sleep great.
You're so lucky.
Well, it is. But it contributes to this bad, unreasonable expectations because my day is so much longer than a regular
normal person. Yes.
Yeah. And so I'm thinking, well, yeah, you got 20 hours to get all this stuff done, but really you've got 8. So whatever. And so, I have to always be thinking about that because it's a real thing. It is.
Yes, that is amazing. Yeah, I think I heard that Barack Obama sleeps about that amount of time. He sleeps very little as well. So you and Barry can be hanging out.
I just need to get his number so I could text him.
You up? Me too.
Right. What world problems are you solving? I love that. Well, Hillary, I cannot tell you how much I've enjoyed talking to you and getting to know you. And I just really appreciate your time, especially as I know you've just gotten back from vacation. I appreciate you coming on and sharing your wisdom with us. And how can people reach you? Like if they would like to learn more, because aren't you also doing a group for maybe women attorneys you tell us a little bit about that.
Yeah, I'm hosting, it's not for attorneys, but it is for women. It is I think it's the second Wednesday of every month. We host a virtual Zoom lunch and we have a speaker, and it really is just a way for us to do personal development in all these different settings. So Lee Hayward is a stylist and fantastic. And she came in and taught one lesson. We had a photographer teach a lesson on headshots and why they're important, like, is your headshot really reflective of who you are and who you want to show up as? Or is it like, outdated and looks like a real estate agent and you are a, creative? So it wouldn't make sense for you to have this type of headshot. So we've done those types of things and they're free. And you can find me on Instagram at the_Hillary_show. So the Hillary Show.
Oh, I love it.
Yeah. My parents used to tease me that this isn't the Hillary Show. And I was like,
well, yeah, it is.
What if it is? So that is my, all these years, it was like, you need to mute yourself and you need to shut up and color, basically. And so now it's like, why? Let's just be silly. Thank you for having me on.
Oh, well, I'm just so excited. Well, and I hope you enjoy the rest of your day and I hope you have an amazing week back. I always find the week after vacation to be pretty energizing.
Yes, it really is. I'm setting up my new office and we have a second location that we just got the decoration plans for. It's going to be amazing. Awesome. So a lot of really wonderful things on the horizon. August is going to be an amazing month. And thank you for being part of that, part of kicking it off for a great month.
That. Well, awesome. Enjoy and thanks again. And I cannot wait to watch and I cannot wait to join a Hillary show sometime. I want to learn all those things.
Yes, I will. I will have to get you the info.
Yeah, absolutely. Thanks again and have a great day.
Thank you.
Bye.
You too. Bye-bye.